Yeah.
but you have to do your research.
Yeah.
So we all were told that based on Bill Johnson's book, and here's a copy of where he wrote about the Philippians 2, and he was exegeting it, and it seemed to be that he was saying that Jesus emptied himself of his divinity to the point where he was not fully God and fully man, but he was fully man during his earthly ministry.
This from Bill Johnson.
I don't know, did you know that Jesus was born again?
Did you know that Jesus was born again? See, they teach that Jesus died spiritually in hell, ceased to be God, and had to be born again. He had to get saved. Dear friends, this is heresy. This is heresy. If there was ever a time in which Jesus was not God, if he ceased to be God, dear friends, then Jesus never was God to begin with.
Today I have begotten you. The second Psalm. You're my beloved Son. Today I have begotten you. Acts 13 tells us that phrase from the Father, today I have begotten you, is in reference to the resurrection. So he was born through Mary, the Virgin, and then he was born again in resurrection. Jesus made this scary statement. He said, the Son of Man can do nothing of himself. Do you know that Jesus so restricted his function on earth that he actually couldn't heal anyone? He couldn't multiply food. He couldn't cast out devils. He couldn't do any of that stuff because he had restricted himself to the life of a human being that would have to be dependent on the Father through the Holy Spirit.
Which is kenosis, which is a heresy. And then later he came up with some interview where he said, oh, no, that's not what I meant. And he backtracked on it, but he hasn't updated the book, and he hasn't corrected, he hasn't taken down his previous Philippians 2 kenosis exegetical teachings. Would either of you care to respond to this confusion that surrounds Bill Johnson's teaching? Is he teaching kenosis or is he not?
Yeah, I mean, from everything that we've seen throughout the years, whether it's from his books, I think it's When Heaven Invades Earth, if I recall, and then he's also got an article out there, or a blog post that was from years ago, where he emphatically stated that Jesus did not perform his miracles as God. He performed his miracles as a man in right relationship with God. And then he repeated that at a recent Hillsong conference. But it's interesting to see him even repeat and regurgitate that through other sermons, and yet hear people try to defend it. And even Bill himself, again, I think in the Rediscovering Bethel series, where he said, what I meant was, and yet, like you kind of touched on, there wasn't really any correction that went back to anything that was said in the past. So everything that I've seen, especially when you take somebody who says Jesus only performed his miracles as a man in right relationship with God, he's really saying, like you said in Philippians, taking that out of context, Jesus emptied himself, right? When really we explain that rightly, that it wasn't that Jesus emptied himself of divinity, but it was that Jesus was putting on humanity. I think that's the main distinction that has to be made. But it all goes back to this attempt that Bethel and other New Apostolic Reformation folks try to make, that they try to do, is they try to bring God down to our level, or they try to deify man. And anything that they can do in the grand scheme of things, and how they teach, how they preach, and the worship songs that they choose that helps that agenda, they're going to do, because that's the main goal. They want to deify man. And in order to do that, you have to de-escalate where God is divinely.